Never Let Me Go, published in 2005 and written by Ishiguro, might be classified as a dystopian sci-fi novel, but the sci-fi elements feel almost incidental. Let's think of the novel as like the Mona Lisa. With the painting, our attention is drawn to the foreground. What's up with that cryptic half smile? We're not really paying attention to that mountainous, somewhat hellish landscape in the background, or if we are, it only is a hazy abstraction. And that's how this novel is. The interpersonal relationships between the three main characters is what we're mostly interested in. But the sci-fi background is still lurking, and as events unfold, it becomes increasingly clear and increasingly malevolent. On my copy of the book, one reviewer wrote, "The book's irresistible power comes from Ishiguro's matchless ability to expose its dark heart in careful increments." Careful increments. This novel is a lot like Ishiguro's other masterpiece, The Remains of the Day. In that work, the protagonist, a butler, reminisces about his life experiences. His memories are mostly pleasant, but they're tainted with a rumor, a cloud, an insinuation of evil. I'm not going to give it away, but if you like the Downton Abbey style palace intrigue with a dash of Nazis, you will enjoy The Remains of the Day. So what makes Never Let Me Go dystopian? As with most dystopias, the society described in the novel is only dystopian for some. This is a society that has found a way to cure all chronic diseases like cancer, neurological disorders, genetic diseases, etc. And on the surface, this sounds great. That is, until you realize that it comes at a pretty high cost. These illnesses have been eradicated via a steady supply of organ donations from clones. Clones are essentially wards of the state. They are raised and educated in institutions that resemble boarding schools. And when their educations are over, they become carers and eventually donors. The carers are clones that help donors recover after a donation. Donors are clones that provide vital organs to non-cloned humans. Most donors can donate multiple times, but after 4 donations, donors complete, meaning they die. It goes without saying that clones comprise a distinctly lower class in this novel, one that most non-clones consider subhuman. And because clones are incapable of having children, they are encouraged to engage in promiscuous behavior. It's all very Brave New Worldy, but without the soma and obstacle golf. Never Let Me Go is narrated by Kathy, a clone. Most of the plot is focused around interesting but unremarkable anecdotes from her childhood spent at Hailsham. Hailsham is a boarding school, but it's unlike other boarding schools for clones. The founders of the school intentionally designed it to where the clone students would receive education in the arts and literature. Whatever remarkable works of art these students produce, these works are hoovered up, which is a British word for vacuumed, and displayed in special galleries and exhibitions. These galleries and exhibitions, we later learn, are acts of political protest. The logic behind these galleries and exhibitions is essentially a statement saying, if these clones can create these works of beauty, why are we treating them as subhuman and disposable? The narrator of the novel, Kathy, is good friends with Ruth and Tommy, who are the 2 other main characters in the novel. The character of Kathy seems to be firmly rooted in the past. She's always chasing after memories and reminding Ruth and Tommy of shared experiences. She collects mementos and attributes great meaning to them. For instance, she has this tape with the song Never Let Me Go on it that is a very prized possession. There is a particularly poignant scene in the novel when Kathy is alone in her room and she's dancing to this song, Never Let Me Go, and she's holding a pillow. Through the partially open door, she's observed by one of the guardians or one of the teachers at the school, and the guardian is weeping. It's very poignant, of course, because Kathy isn't able to have children, and she is treating the pillow as though she were a child, and the lyrics of the song are Never Let Me Go, baby, baby. And even though the lyrics are not about an actual infant and child, for Kathy they are. The character of Tommy is firmly rooted in the present. As a young boy, he's often the target of bullying, and his response to these acts of bullying are often tantrums. He doesn't really think about the past or the future. He's firmly rooted in the urgency of the present and responds often, at least in his early childhood, with anger. He continues to struggle with his anger management until one of the guardians at the school has a talk with him and lets him know that even though he isn't able to produce art of a quality or of the caliber of other students, that does not mean that he is lacking in any inherent value. This is sort of a common sense insight, or at least from the reader's perspective, we would read that and say, of course he still has value, even if he's not as artistic as the other students. But this is a controversial idea at Hailsham. If you've watched the movie Mean Girls, then you know that the character Regina George is very manipulative. The character of Ruth is kind of like a Regina George in this book, but she also has the capacity for empathy and true friendship. Ruth is rooted in an inner fantasy world that she tries to project onto exterior reality, often unsuccessfully. For instance, one of Kathy's earliest memories of Ruth is when Ruth allows her to borrow one of her invisible horses, and she allows Kathy to borrow the worst horse and then work her way up to the best invisible horse. Ruth also has a rather far-fetched idea that one of the guardians, Miss Geraldine, is at risk of being kidnapped, and so she marshals a group of students together to be the protectors of Miss Geraldine and to protect her from any harm. The irony, of course, being that Miss Geraldine is not in any imminent danger. It's Ruth, it's the other students. And when Ruth is close to leaving Hailsham, she dreams of having an office job, which is obviously impossible because her role is to be one of the carers and donors. A final way that Ruth is somewhat fanciful and unrealistic is her invented relationship with Tommy. It's a real relationship, but the invented part is the realness of the romance. It is entirely contrived, and although Tommy might feel some genuine affection for Ruth, and Ruth might feel some genuine affection for Tommy, they are staying together more for Ruth's benefit because she has this idea that they need to be a perfect couple, even when the compatibility is not right, and Tommy most clearly belongs with Kathy. I like this book because it's really a book about life and love amidst difficult circumstances. Yes, those circumstances are pretty sci-fi-y, but they exist as a given canvas, a background upon which we can experience and enjoy the characters' interactions. What is far more interesting to me than all the sci-fi elements is how normal everything appears, how granted it all is, which leads us readers to the insight that normalcy is probably the product of repetition, not some innate everydayness. It's what you see outside, it's what you experience with your eyes and your ears. That's normal. Normal is what happens. I also like this book because it deals with the issue of class, which is an especially pressing issue in the time of the coronavirus. In the United States, we are not clones bred to provide organs to the rich and powerful, but if we are not rich and powerful, we do not get tested for the coronavirus. This class difference is really pronounced in times of catastrophe and in times of duress and in times of pandemic, as we are in right now. Finally, I like this book because I think it is a powerful meditation on meaning. Most clones accept their role in society because it gives their lives meaning. When Kathy and Tommy finally become romantically involved, they seek a deferment for Tommy's fourth donation, but are ultimately turned down. After that happens, they accept their destiny, and Tommy completes as a clone. Notice that word complete. A clone's life and a clone's meaning in life is to provide organs, and once that meaning has been exhausted, its meaning is completed. Life doesn't end, it completes. In conclusion, Never Let Me Go is a completely spellbinding book. I like it. I think you should read it.